Bubba, start cleaning those tires up. Don't green this time. Remember, they fan out down there, so protect that bottom. Sunday drive. All right, boss man. Face car's off. Be ready. Bub, be ready. Gas that bitch up. Ready. Green flag. Green.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Inside Pass on WSIC TV. I am Randy Miller. Tom Baker sitting over in the Stillman seat today. Welcome to our tribute to Kyle Larson's career. Over the next 55 minutes or so, we'll talk all about the entire debacle that happened over the weekend involving Kyle Larson. It is a lot to talk about and a lot to dissect, and we will talk all about it on the show. We also will be joined by our good friend Chris Rice from Kaulig Racing. We'll talk to him about how things are going over at the Kaulig Racing shop in the midst of this coronavirus shutdown, and how they are doing. And we'll get his thoughts on Kyle Larson, too, because I know he's good friends with a lot of people in the garage area, so I'm sure he can shed some light from the perspective of a general manager as to, how to keep your drivers on the straight and narrow, I guess you could say at this point. So we'll jump into all the details about that. If you have any thoughts or comments about the Kyle Larson situation, feel free to give us a call, 704-873-1400. Our phone lines are open. They're open now, and they'll be open after Chris Rice is on, so that you can give us your thoughts. We are also on Facebook Live. We started this last week. We didn't really mention it because I didn't know if it was going to be a weekly thing, but it's going to be a weekly thing going forward. So be sure to go to the WSIC Facebook page, WSIC News, and scroll down to the video part, and you should see the live feed. We are on Facebook. You can leave your questions, comments, and stuff right there on the live feed as well. We can ask Chris those questions. If you have any questions for Chris Rice, feel free to leave those in the comment section. Tom's on there. I'm on there as well. If you have anything you want to say or anything you want to shout out, we can definitely do that while we're on the air. So we'll start with, of course, the coronavirus shutdown has everything up in arms right now. Nobody really knows what's going to happen with the NASCAR schedule going forward. There is a little bit of, I guess, a glimmer of hope for the NASCAR world, because NASCAR has not yet made a decision regarding whether or not they're going to race at Martinsville in May. May 9th, I believe, is the race that they scheduled for Martinsville. And that is because, due to some... I guess, what do I call it, research or, digging down deep, I found out that Virginia's stay-at-home order that runs until mid-May or the end of May is only for residential people. It does not include businesses. The non-essential business model runs out on April 23rd. So, hypothetically, NASCAR would be allowed to run Martinsville after April 23rd, assuming that the governor does not extend it even further. But it would be, even though it's not a technical business, it is not a non-essential business, which means that protocol, I guess, would expire on the 23rd. So technically, NASCAR could still run Martinsville, providing that the governor does not extend that stay-at-home order for businesses past April 23rd.
Well, that's interesting.
Yes.
So now we actually know why NASCAR has held off so long to announce one way or the other whether Martinsville is on or off.
Correct.
That's interesting news, because the advertised date for the shutdown is June the 10th.
Correct. But that is residential, basically... residents of the state of Virginia.
So in other words, what you're saying is that that businesses in the state only have, it ends on April 23rd. It does not, as of right now, it doesn't.
Right, it does not extend into June.
It doesn't follow the June 10th residential date. Well.
They're under two different stay-at-home orders, basically, in the state of Virginia.
That's interesting, because I would be willing to bet that the majority of people that pay attention don't even have a clue that there's two different dates.
Probably not.
So
now,
that's
obviously they would do the race without fans, even if the races ran,
right?
Because there would be no stadium, any kind of gathering of more than a few people. But I mean, who knows? I don't know what that looks like in terms of racing either, because non-essential businesses obviously would mean like retail shops and things like that, where social distancing guidelines are still being, like, there's still a CDC guideline for those 6 feet apart and cleaning of surfaces and things like that. But when we're talking about NASCAR, obviously it's going to be more than 10 people in a gathering. So I don't know what that would look like, but I mean, at least there's a ray of hope there somewhere that NASCAR could still get the Martinsville race.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing right now with all of this is that even if North Carolina lifts the stay at home that after April 30th, because that's when ours ends here, even if Governor Cooper doesn't extend it, you go back to work on May 1st, the question becomes, can we get 43 teams or 40 teams to have their cars ready to go basically within about 2 days?
Right,
and
exactly.
I hear a lot of kind of mixed information about whether that can happen or not. Now, the other thing I think we probably ought to point out to people is that there were 2 races, or are 2 races scheduled for Martinsville.
Correct.
The NASCAR Wheel and Modified Tour race is scheduled for Friday, I think it's May 8th, and then the Cup race is Saturday night, May 9th. Now, the Tour race has not technically been canceled. Well, I guess it is assumed that the race is, again, I don't think it's technically been canceled, but when you've got all those teams coming from New England, you've got to give them some sort of notice whether it's on or off.
Right.
So I guess what I'm trying to say is that from a logistics standpoint, even with this new information about Virginia, from a logistics standpoint, this could be very tough to pull off. But I think NASCAR is probably wanting to just examine every possible scenario before they make a decision.
Right. That's
one
true.
way or another.
Yeah. We're talking about, if you were talking about running a race with fans in the stands, you obviously have to keep that 9th date firm. But if you're talking about running the race without fans in the stands, you could conceivably move it a couple of weeks, maybe run it the week before the Coca-Cola 600 or something. And that way it would give teams a couple extra weeks to get prepared to run the race. Because it's not like you're going, logistically, it's not that far. It's 2 hours away or whatever, drive up there and run the race and come back. So it's really not logistically that far out of the realm to say, okay, yes, it was scheduled for the 9th, let's move it to the 13th or whatever. We already know the All-Star race is not going to happen anyway, so let's just, forget the All-Star race existed this year and move that to where the All-Star race would be, and then,
You could do that. That is a possibility for sure.
Do that as well.
If you could do it. I know that the NASCAR schedule that we saw circulating a week or two ago, which is very tentative, and it was sort of here's what we could do, had Martinsville and 3 other races being made up in July midweek.
Yeah.
Now, again, maybe if you can get going in May, maybe you do look at taking one of those. And this was something that Nick Moncher suggested on one of our shows a while back, that we take one of those and go ahead and put it in, like Atlanta, for example, put Atlanta where the All-Star race was, move the All-Star race to the middle of 600 week, and then go ahead and run the 600. So you're not losing the All-Star race. You're getting Atlanta in there in that time frame. And again, Atlanta, like Martinsville, is within like 4 hours, so it's probably doable.
Right.
So I think there are probably a number of things you can do. The question on the table is whether or not teams can come in on the 1st of May and have cars ready to go for all of that so quickly.
Well, we'll talk to Chris Rice about that when he calls in a little bit, because he would be able to give us perspective on that as well. We are going to take our break. When we come back, Chris Rice will be on the StripMasters.com hotline, and we'll talk to him about everything going on at Kaulig Racing when we come back on the Inside Pass on WSIC. Stick around. We'll be right back.
This is News Talk 105.9 Lake Norman, 100.7 Greater Statesville, WSIC, where Mooresville turns first for breaking news and severe weather alerts.
Financial stuff, it's so confusing. Where do you even start?
With a trusted partner who knows the options and can understand your individual needs. That partner is Joshua Doby from the North Main Financial Group in Cornelius and host of North Main Financial, Saturdays at noon on WSIC.
Hello, this is Joshua Doby, and I'm excited to share financial education while securing your financial future. Whether it's stocks, bonds, life insurance, partnerships, or anything else, we're here to help. Join me Saturdays at noon and visit us at northmainfinancial.com.
For WSIC, I'm Fox 46 meteorologist Nick Koser. Overnight, going to be a little bit cool, 47 under generally clear skies. Tomorrow, then, the clouds roll in, a 40% chance for showers, and it'll be much cooler with a high of only 57. Thursday, sunny and a rebound in temps, back up to about 66. From the Neighborhood Stormwatch Forecast Center, I'm meteorologist Nick Koser. Be sure to catch Chief Meteorologist Tara Lane today on Fox 46 News at 5.
Mayhem is everywhere.
I'm your new Bangs, and you can't stop staring at me. That's it. Just tilt the rearview mirror over here. And while you're checking me out more times than a library book, your car is wandering into that lane over there. More bangs? Neat. And if you've got cut rate insurance, you could be paying for this yourself. So get Allstate.
Call me, Allstate agent Kyle Houston today, 980-434-7000.
I'm Nick Soboleski, a Select Quote agent with a true story that could save you hundreds of dollars a year. A woman named Linda just called. Her husband, Ray, has a $300,000 group life insurance policy, but is changing jobs and can't take it with him. Well, I shopped the many highly rated term life insurance companies we represent, like Prudential and Mutual of Omaha, and found Ray, who is 41 and takes medication to control his cholesterol, a 10-year, $500,000 policy for under $27 a month. That's almost twice the coverage for less than half of what he had paid. If SelectQuote hasn't shopped for your life insurance, you're probably paying too much.
For your free quote, call 800-589-5599. That's 800-589-5599. 800-589-5599. Or go to SelectQuote.com. Since 1985, we shop, you save.
Get full details on the example policy at SelectQuote.com/commercials. Or price could vary depending on your health, issuing company, and other factors. Not available in all states.
This is News Talk 105.9 Lake Norman, 100.7 Greater Statesville, WSIC, where Huntersville turns first for breaking news and severe weather alerts.
Hello, race fans. This is Chris Wright. Thanks for listening to these guys. Man, what some great radio hosts. You're listening to the Inside Pass.
I promise we did not do that on purpose. Welcome back to the Inside Pass on WSIC. Randy Miller, Tom Baker, thank you so much for watching us on WSIC TV radio and on Facebook Live. We have a little bit of breaking news. We'll get to Chris Rice in just 1 second. A little bit of breaking news from Adam Stern. CGR, Chip Ganassi Racing, has fired Kyle Larson after the incidents over the weekend. We'll get to that in just a little bit. Right now, we're going to go to the strepmasters.com hotline and talk to one of our really good friends and a great friend of the show from Kaulig Racing, the general manager over at Kaulig Racing. Chris Rice is on the Inside Pass. And I do want to ask you about what happened with Kyle Larson. We'll get to that in a minute. But first of all, I want to know how you guys are doing, how you guys are feeling, and how everything is going up at the Kaulig Racing shop.
Well, we're doing great. We're definitely sad that we're shut down, but we understand why, and we're trying to get through this together. And like I always say on all my social media platforms, we're in this together, and we're going to make it happen. We're going to get better, and we're going to get through it. But we're ready to go back racing, just like everybody else is probably ready to get out of their house.
Yes, that's very true.
We're tired of our houses. We've seen enough of them for a while.
Yeah, that's what I told somebody. I didn't know much about this iRacing stuff, and I figured that getting our sponsors out there, Nutrient Solutions and Leaf Up the Gutter Protection, I got this iRacing. I put it on this little picnic table. I actually borrowed a steering wheel and gas pedal from a guy and went out and got a computer, spent a lot of money, and I'm like, as soon as we go back to racing, this thing will have dust all over it. So
it goes in the back of the garage, never to be seen again.
Exactly.
So what's been going on over at Kaulig Racing? I mean, before the shutdown, I mean, obviously you guys were going through the motions of getting cars prepared and everything like that. Once the shutdown happened, everybody obviously had to leave the shop. Are you guys ready to go back to the shop, and are you guys ready to go to the next race, or do you need a couple weeks to prepare, or what's the thing going on over there at Kaulig Racing right now?
So when it all went down, we kind of went to a half scale. We kept people working, less than 10 people in here, but we're ready to go racing for the next 5 or 6 weeks. We made it. I made it very clear to everybody, hey, when we come back out, we want to be ready to win races and do what we need to do. So we rocked it out and got all my guys and girls got cars ready. We came up with a lot of different schedules of what the races might look like. So, yeah, we're sitting here ready to go. We can go probably into tomorrow if we needed to, as long as we could get motors and stuff like that. But we're definitely ready to go.
I wish we could go tomorrow. That'd be awesome.
It would be nice.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, we could leave today, so we get to the track on time. Chris, I think that's one of the biggest things that a lot of us have been talking about is simply the logistics. Martinsville's not been taken off the schedule. Charlotte certainly is kind of being looked at as potentially the first race, perhaps. But how many of the teams, realistically, do you think could actually walk in, assuming that North Carolina lifts the stay-at-home order on the 30th of April as it's supposed to end now and doesn't extend it? You walk in on the 1st of May, and how quickly do you think most teams could feasibly get cars ready to go out the door to a race? I mean, is Martinsville, I know that the Xfinity Series is not part of Martinsville, but just from what you're hearing and kind of your experience, is it realistic to think that could actually happen in a matter of less than 3 days' time?
Oh, yeah, I think definitely most race teams still have the Atlanta cars and their Homestead cars put together, so I think they could go racing pretty quick. I don't think a lot of people came home and took their stuff apart. I know some race teams have not even went back to their shop since Atlanta.
Right.
But, I definitely think NASCAR does the right thing and gives teams enough time to get ready. I don't think if they lifted the order, May 1st or May 15th, they would say, okay, we're going racing that weekend. I think they would give us enough time to be ready. NASCAR's pretty smart to understand that they got to get all their stuff to the racetrack and set up all their equipment.
Yeah.
And, how do we go through still staying safe? Because I don't think the everything's over yet. So, we're going to have to go to these racetracks and still, it's going to be a different world. Bathrooms are going to have different soap. You're going to have to, it's a lot of things that goes into a racetrack to get ready. And as you know, nobody's working at those racetracks right now.
Right.
So we'll have time and we'll be able to get through this and understand what's the best policy for us as a professional sport to be able to go back and put on shows for fans. And I look forward to going through all that with NASCAR and maybe giving some input and stuff like that. I do look forward to that because right now I am so tired of trying to figure out, the one thing you can do is maintain your shop or keep your business up to where you need to keep it up to. And I've been to Kaulig racing. I come to Kaulig racing quite a bit, and we have 2 people come in. We've been painting walls, cutting trees, and not me, obviously, but people have been doing that. And I look forward to getting back to the racetrack and putting on the shows for all these great fans.
So your honeydew list came from Matt. It didn't come from your wife.
Exactly.
He had 2, and Matt's was easier. So he just went into the shop.
Exactly. So we've seen a lot of rumors on Facebook and in social media about the NASCAR schedule. A lot of rumors floating around about what the schedule is going to look like. I've heard some rumors that there have been talks by various people that they were going to either cancel the Xfinity and Truck Series season altogether or alternate it in some kind of way. What have you heard? Has NASCAR reached out to you guys and kind of talked to you guys about what the Xfinity schedule might look like when we start back racing again?
I definitely don't think they cancel anything, right? They're just postponing it. I definitely, they're not even talking about canceling anything. So wherever that comes up, I don't know who would put that out, I think some people try to find the negative in everything instead
it's
of
NASCAR.
finding the positive in it, So they definitely, I don't think they cancel anything. They postpone it. We figure out how to get to all these racetracks. We run some midweek races, and we go from there.
Sounds like a good game plan to me, I would think.
I love midweek races.
Yeah, midweek races.
I love that idea. Yep. I think midweek primetime shows. I think the interest in what we're seeing just from the iRacing dirt stuff on FS1 tells us that there's an appetite for midweek primetime racing. So I say let's do it if we can. But, of course, it's easy for us to sit here in our studio and talk about all that. We don't have to do all that traveling and figure out how to move people in cars. But
exactly,
it certainly seems like a good idea to me if we need to do it to make up races.
Exactly.
So I want to obviously get to the big story in NASCAR right now is obviously Kyle Larson. We're going to talk more about it later on in the show, but basically in the span of about 12 hours, he's pretty much lost his entire career in the NASCAR world. As a general manager for Kaulig Racing, you obviously have your drivers that you have to kind of keep an eye on. Even during the shutdown, you have to reach out to them and make sure that they're following guidelines and doing everything that you ask them to do. How difficult is it to keep your guys, Justin Haley and Ross Chastain and AJ Allmendinger, from doing, going places and doing things online and keeping that profile of knowing that even though you're not racing, you're technically still in the public eye, and you have to maintain a good attitude about yourself no matter what's going on in your life.
Yeah, I mean, it's not tough at all. You just advise them that, you still signed the letter with NASCAR, and you still got to do what they kind of say. Even though, I spend a lot of time probably with Justin. Well, I spend a lot of time with all three of them, actually. And we talk about, things that people do and not trying to get in trouble. We always want to be that team that doesn't get in trouble or doesn't do anything like that. But, it's always tough when you're on when Justin Haley, him and I on this thing on iRacing where we talk back and forth, when you're racing and you still have that emotion that you're in a real race car. So it's funny that you asked, because I do talk to them, and I went and played golf with AJ, before all this went down, and talked to him, and we just have good conversations. Ross Chastain, they're grown people, they're grown men, they know what they can and can't do. So you just go over that before the season starts, and they got to stick to it.
Sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, that's just such a tough situation. I mean, you hate it for Kyle, and we all know Kyle's a good guy, and, good people make bad choices, and unfortunately sometimes those choices have pretty serious consequences, and this one was just one that did. So, we certainly wish Kyle the best, and hopefully he can kind of recover from this, and you just hope it's something you learn from and grow from for the future.
That's exactly right, and that's what I said on Sirius XM yesterday. Just learn from it. Maybe somebody will learn from it, and we'll get through that. He'll get through it. I feel, very deeply sorry for him, and but at the same time, we just got to learn from it and move on.
That couldn't said it better myself. Chris, thank you so much for joining us. Best of luck over at Kaulig Racing. I know you guys are itching to get back to racing. We're itching for you guys to get back to racing so we can have much more to talk about. And best of luck to you. I'm sure we'll talk to you guys very many more times, especially over the course of the summer once we get racing again.
Yep, thank you guys, and thanks for keeping NASCAR at the forefront. We appreciate it, and I'll talk to you guys soon.
All right,
thanks,
no problem. Chris, have a great day, and enjoy yourself. Be safe out there. We will take a break. We'll come back, and we'll talk about the Kyle Larson situation when we come back on the Inside Pass.
This is News Talk 105.9 Lake Norman, 100.7 Greater Statesville, WSIC, where Terrell turns first for breaking news and severe weather alerts.
Headlines for Lincoln County and the region. Here's WSIC News. You've tuned in to hear local news, and so have a lot of other people. Your business could be advertising right here. Find out how affordable it can be. Call 704-872-6345, 704-872-6345.
Hey radio family, it's Margaret Beveridge from the WSIC News Desk. The University of North Carolina System's 16 college campuses will give prorated reimbursements for food and housing, Interim President Bill Roper announced March 30th. Since then, several campus leaders say the refund process has already begun, including at Appalachian State and East Carolina universities. Some private colleges are also offering refunds or credits, including Duke and Elon universities. Mecklenburg County is the statewide epicenter of the COVID-19 crisis, with 970 diagnosed cases, more than twice as many as Wake County. Both counties have roughly the same population, 1.1 million according to the U.S. Census Bureau. The city of Charlotte is larger than Raleigh, with roughly 826,000 residents compared to Raleigh's 449,000. WSIC is working around the clock to help keep you informed, so visit WSICFM.com and stay tuned right here for more.
Ever ask yourself, why should I care? Join me, Melissa Nieder, as I speak with Roberta about Night to Shine, the worldwide prom sponsored by the Tim Tebow Foundation, committed to celebrating people with special needs.
Thursdays at 8 on News Talk 105.9, 100.7 WSIC.
Okay, first time we read this commercial, he got one, so I had to get one.
Hey, and we are both in love with this product.
The glass chair mat by Batraza. These things are unbelievable.
Hey, you know that junky plastic mat under your office chair?
Piece of garbage.
It's the ugliest thing in your office.
Batraza glass chair mats are beautiful.
They never dent.
Each glass chair mat will hold 1,000 pounds.
It might even hold me.
Maybe. They get a lifetime warranty, and the way you feel rolling over smooth glass instead of cheap, crackly plastic, it's like working in $1 million office.
Hey, and it's your office.
Super strong, beautiful, lifetime warranty. Batraza glass glass chair mats.
You can't get them at the office superstore. You got to order direct at Vitraza.com. That's V as in Victor, ITRAZZA. Vitraza.com.
Oh, and we got to mention this shipping is absolutely free. Use discount code AM and you'll save $25 to $95 on any glass chair mat.
Vitraza.com.
This is Pastor Randy Mitchell with Back to Basics broadcast. Join us Monday through Friday at 6 p.m. for Bible preaching and teaching. You don't want to miss it. Back to Basics only on WSIC.
I'm Chase Elliott, and you're listening to the Inside Pass.
Welcome back to the Inside Pass on WSIC. Thank you so much for watching us. If you're watching us on the digital cable, digital channel 25.2 in the greater Lake Norman area on WSIC TV, or if you're listening to us on one of three WSIC family of radio stations, 105.9 FM, 100.7 FM, or 1400 AM, or if you're listening to us on the live stream, which is at WSICweb.com, or on Facebook Live. If you go to the WSIC News Facebook page, there should be a live video feed right there. If you click on that, you will see our smiling faces this morning here at the WSIC studios in Statesville.
It's also up on Race Chaser Media's Facebook page, by the way.
And the great thing about that is that you can just take a piece of paper and cover up our faces and just listen to our voices.
There you go.
So anyway, we just got off the phone with Chris Rice, general manager at Kaulig Racing, just basically letting us know that they're ready to go. If the lockdown ended today, they'd be ready to go racing tomorrow. I wish we could do that, but we still have another couple of weeks of at least a couple of weeks of lockdown before we get back to racing. But if you have been living under a rock, I'm sure you have probably not heard about the fantastic situation that happened over the weekend where we essentially have now lost a NASCAR Cup driver to basically being dumb. I'm just going to put it out there. He was just being dumb. iRacing had an event on Sunday. I believe it was a road course race. It wasn't a NASCAR race. It was a supercar, some sort of road course type race anyway. But Kyle Larson was invited to participate in trying to get his feed working correctly on his Twitch channel. He was trying to get a hold of his spotter and said a racial slur that obviously I cannot repeat on this air, but it was a very derogatory comment that he thought his channel wasn't live. He thought he was on a private channel still, and his channel ended up being live. The word has since cost him sponsorship with was it Bank One?
Well, Credit Bank.
Credit Bank.
Credit One Bank.
Credit One Bank. I was trying to think. There was a one in there somewhere.
You threw me off. Credit One Bank.
McDonald's.
Have both. They both terminated their relationships pretty quickly.
Yep.
Chevrolet suspended him. Mm-hmm. NASCAR suspended him. Chip Ganassi Racing suspended him. iRacing literally threw him off the service. Mm-hmm. Lucas Oil later on suspended him or terminated the relationship with him. Mm-hmm. I mean, what ultimately happened is that over the course of a day, he lost every major sponsor that was associated with him and Chip Ganassi, pretty much, and he lost Lucas Oil, which is one of his big sponsors on dirt, and he lost the support of the manufacturer, Chevrolet. So at the end of the day, literally, Chip Ganassi is kind of looking at this saying, well, gosh, even if I wanted to keep him,
right?
None of the sponsors will sponsor him that we have, and Chevrolet is not happy with him. It became a situation where Chip didn't really have a lot of choice. And I've seen people saying Chip's a sellout. Kyle makes one mistake, and folks, this, and again, we don't want to paint. We got to be careful here to paint this in the correct light. Okay, Kyle did not use this word in a negative way,
right,
or even in a mean-spirited way. Here's the problem: nobody should be using that word at all. Period. Right. It has no place in today's society. I watched an interview last night on Fox with Regan Smith and Jason Whitlock. And they made some great points about the fact that in this situation, you can say, well, but it's used over here, or it's used over there. Well, there are a lot of things that certain people do. Just because certain people or a lot of people do them doesn't make it right to do them.
Well, a lot of people say that word too, but there are people that have that right to say that word.
I don't see, that's where I disagree. I don't think anybody has the right to say it. It should be just dropped from the lexicon, period. And here's the problem. That word gets used so casually these days, as if you're saying, and here's how Kyle did it. Kyle went, he was trying to sort of call his spotter. And instead of saying, hey, goofball, hey, silly boy, hey, jerk, hey, dumbbell, he went, hey.
Right.
And, I mean, why would you even use that word? I made the point to somebody this morning, if it's a word that your parents taught you was bad when you were little, it's still bad.
Right, exactly.
We use too many words that we shouldn't be using, but that one still is very stigmatizing, polarizing, disrespectful. So here's a very good person who just did something that a lot of people do very casually, but he's in a position where, auto racing and NASCAR in particular is a sport that has really worked hard to become diverse and inclusive. And you're never, when your brand is your brand and you take it with you wherever you go. And even if it's just playing a sim game. Now, Whitlock brought up an interesting point about the fact that it seems as though in esports culture, there's a huge problem with communication and language and, abusive language in some cases. That was all stuff I don't know because I'm not a gamer, but it was interesting hearing that maybe some of this is that in that environment, everybody's doing it, again, right or wrong. And so Kyle thinks, well, it's a sim, whatever, but it just wasn't right. There's no defense for what he did. We don't want to paint him as a bad person, but again, we drop F-bombs all over the place these days. Why? It's not necessary. There are other words you can use. We have to respect the situation we're in. And Kyle is a part of a sport that, is very Christian. It's very focused on sponsors and businesses and professionalism, and you just can't use racial words like that, and that's what's so unfortunate about this is it was unnecessary. It didn't have to happen. And as much as my heart breaks for Kyle in a way, because gosh, in a matter of a day, but that's how easy it is. And so for all the younger drivers that are out there and people in general, words mean things. Yeah, I've tried to teach that for years. Words mean things.
That's true.
And you got to be responsible for what you say. And in this case, unfortunately, it's led to Kyle being out of a ride now. And you say, I've heard people say, well, Tony Stewart and Stuart Haas will pick him up. They want him.
It's not that easy.
It's not that easy.
You got to find a sponsor that's going to sponsor him.
Especially right now. There's probably going to be a period, I would guess, where nobody's going to touch him because you got to kind of let this settle down a little bit. Let him go through his sensitivity training.
I think that needs to happen, though. They need to let him go away and let him think about what he's done. I mean, put him in the corner, preferably. But I know, like, you spent a lot of your career, Tom, working with the younger kids.
Yep.
A lot of the Bandolero guys, a lot of the Legends guys, growing up in the sport. Yep. You've gotten to know these kids, and I know you teach them the etiquette of behave when they're in the media spotlight. The problem I have with Kyle Larson is yesterday, he sent this Instagram or made this Instagram video apologizing, and I could look at the video and I could tell obviously he was sincere. He was nearly crying in the video.
Yeah, I think I agree.
My problem with it is in the back of my mind, I keep thinking the video was done after a lot of this stuff had already happened. Like a lot of the, you're being suspended by this and you're being fired for this, whatever. Where in the spectrum should he have said, like, is a situation where he knew he was wrong when he did it? Should he have apologized right then and there and tried to fan the fire before it got too far out of the way? Or was that the right part in the day to put the video out saying, hey, I'm sorry, to try to stop whatever may be happening after the video played.
Well,
here's
what happens.
Because I don't seem like it doesn't seem to me like the video is as sincere, knowing that he was pressured maybe to do it from other people. Going, you know what, you need to do this video now to keep it from being too far out of the way.
Here's my take on that. Here's what a lot of people don't realize is that, again, in this type of situation where you're in a professional sport and you have, PR people and other people around
executives,
you.
Sponsors, owners.
Here's what happens. Sunday night, he makes the mistake. Mm-hmm. And, of course, it blows up. It's Easter Sunday.
Yeah.
Right?
Everybody's watching iRacing. There's nothing else to watch.
Everybody's kind of hanging out. And it blows up big time. But, of course, nobody has time to react until Monday when, Chip can get a hold of, the sponsors. There's a process that has to happen there.
Okay.
NASCAR didn't say anything Sunday night because, they've all got to get together. Mm-hmm. Chip's got to get together with the sponsors. If you notice, Monday morning, it didn't take long for both NASCAR and Chip to react and say suspended indefinitely. Mm-hmm. Then, the sponsors have to talk. Everybody's got to, what are we going to do here? It's basically damage control and what are we doing going forward?
Right.
And so I think what Kyle was probably told was just stay quiet until we get this thing figured out and see where it's going. Then, if you're going to talk, because if he comes out right away and starts apologizing or whatever, number one, I don't think it really changes ultimately what happens. In other words, you can say, and I believe he truly is sorry.
I think I can tell in the video he's sorry.
Yeah, Kyle's not that kind of a person.
No, for sure.
But so I don't think the timing of it matters. The sincerity of it does, and I think he was sincere. But ultimately, you give people no choice. There are some actions that you take now and then where you give people no choice. The sponsors had no choice. Chip Ganassi had no choice because the sponsors had no choice. NASCAR was going to suspend him anyway. It's a terrible situation, really. Mm-hmm. Nobody's winning here. Nobody's, nobody wanted any of this. Nobody is taking glory or happiness in any of this. Nobody wins. NASCAR loses, Chip loses, Kyle loses, the sponsors lose. Everybody loses in this scenario. And you can say, well, everybody makes a mistake. He didn't deserve all this. Some mistakes you just gotta, it's just that kind of a thing. I mean, there again, he's old enough to know better than to use a word like that.
Especially when you're a minority yourself.
Well, that's a whole other aspect that I brought up last night on Lead Lap is that here's a guy who benefited from diversity, and you're using a word like that, but it shows how easy it is when you just start hearing something all the time that it just becomes a word. In other words, you use it without realizing the sensitivity or the, around the word or the phrase or whatever it is. It's like, people who damn God, right? To a Christian, that is like nails on a chalkboard, and it makes me want to just punch them through a wall when I see people do that.
Right.
It's not necessary. We just have to learn that language and communication is, words mean things, and we got to be careful. And this is, unfortunately for Kyle, he becomes an object lesson for the rest of us. It's not that we're too PC. That word just shouldn't be used anymore.
No, that's
period.
Exactly right.
And, that's, again, I pray for Kyle. I hope Kyle comes out of this okay. And eventually I'm sure he will. I mean, he's not the first one to have been in this situation, but all you need to do is think back a couple of years to when Connor Daly was running an Xfinity race. I think it was Mid-Ohio or somewhere, Road America for Roush. And he had a sponsor, and somebody at some point during that weekend, it became known that his father 35 years ago had said that word or used that kind of a slur. And the sponsor disappeared like instantaneously on the race weekend.
Yeah.
It's, gosh, man, if I could say anything to Kyle now, it'd be like, man, please learn. Don't ever do that. And you know what? Every younger driver you talk to, give them a little bit of mentoring and coaching and say, look, you're responsible for what you say. Yeah. You know, if you're going to say somebody's got the most punchable face in the garage, you better be prepared for the consequences of that. You have a right to say it, but you don't have a right to no consequences.
That's right.
And unfortunately, Kyle just made a bad mistake. And, you know, it's just, like I said, it's not a good situation. I hate that we're even having to spend time talking about it, but you have to because it's what's there. And it is a pretty big story. And for me, I'm really conscious of other people understanding that you don't just get to walk around and say stuff just because someone else does.
Right, exactly. We are going to take a great break. When we come back on the other side, we'll talk about the implications of what this means. We talked about it earlier from the breaking news tweet. We'll talk about it again when we come back on the Inside Pass.
Read it tomorrow, see it tonight, or hear it now on News Talk 105.9 Lake Norman, 100.7 Greater Statesville, WSIC.
Hey, this is Tracy Austin with Mental Fitness Matters. Join me and Katie Stankovich, the owner of Willow Equine, as we discuss therapeutic benefits of horses for your mental health. Thursday morning, 8:30 a.m. right here on News Talk 105.9, 100.7 WSIC.
For WSIC, I'm Fox 46 meteorologist Nick Koster. Overnight going to be a little bit cool, 47 under generally clear skies. Tomorrow then, the clouds roll in, a 40% chance for showers, and it'll be much cooler with a high of only 57. Thursday, sunny and a rebound in temps, back up to about 66. From the Neighborhood Stormwatch Forecast Center, I'm meteorologist Nick Koster. Be sure to catch Chief Meteorologist Tara Lane today on Fox 46 News at 5.
This is Margaret Beveridge with your latest news. April typically heralds the opening of farmers markets in much of North Carolina and the start of the tourist season, which spurs an infusion of fresh local produce into many restaurants. But with restaurants shuttered and many farmers markets disrupted due to COVID-19, farmers are experiencing potentially devastating repercussions. According to Appalachian Sustainable Agriculture Project, an Asheville-based nonprofit organization that serves as a resource and link for farmers and consumers, Western North Carolina farm sales to restaurants and products sold through some 50 area markets account for more than $16 million in annual revenue. North Carolina gas prices have fallen 5.1 cents per gallon in the past week, averaging $1.67 a gallon as of Monday, a news release from Gas Buddy reported. Stay tuned to WSIC throughout the day for more. I'm Margaret Beveridge from the News Desk.
I'm Mike Sprayberry, North Carolina's Emergency Management Director. We're working closely with our partners at the Department of Health and Human Services to slow the spread of COVID-19 or coronavirus. A large part of that response is communicating important and accurate information to everyone about the current situation. Everything you see about the virus is not accurate, especially on social media. There's a lot of bad information out there, so make sure you are getting information from reliable sources like the Department of Health and Human Services, the Centers for Disease Control, or your state and local health departments. Every day we are updating good information regarding COVID-19 on the DHHS website, ncdhhs.gov/coronavirus. Follow DHHS on social media. Use these sources for good information and help your community out by not spreading misinformation. And we will all get through this coronavirus outbreak together.
Furnished by the North Carolina Association of Broadcasters.
This is Justin Lofton, and you're listening to the best guys on the radio, the Inside Pass.
Welcome back to the Inside Pass on WSIC TV, radio, Facebook Live, and live streamed at WSICweb.com. Randy Miller, Tom Baker, back with you, talking about the Kyle Larson situation. Before we get back to that, Tom, did you see there was a video on Twitter somebody posted of Jordan Taylor's sim rig? I think he was in a race over the weekend or whatever. He had a really hard crash in the sim race, and he actually hit the sim wall so hard that his rig fell down and scattered all over the floor. It was the funniest thing I've ever seen. I'm sure, and to him it probably wasn't funny because that's a nice rig he's got. But
exactly. And again, I don't want to make light of whatever may have broken, but to watch it, first of all, the fact that it was Justin Taylor was perfect.
Right.
like, it just because Justin is always, a very sort of gregarious and, outgoing personality, likes to joke around and have a good time. And we all appreciate his social media. But to have that happen, it was like that's the first time I've ever literally seen a sim rig crash. We get some of these sim rig drivers we've had on our shows that kid about the fact that they're basically racing their desks because they have the steering wheel sort of anchored to the desk. They don't have the big sit down rig like a lot of the. So you're racing your desk. Well, it's like crashing your desk, except this was actually a rig. And I'm just thinking that was you'd almost think he planned it.
Yeah, right. Because it makes you want to take like a hammer and screwdriver or something, just put something in the desk just so you can sign it to remember this day I wrecked my desk doing iRacing. Welcome back to the show. So a little bit more breaking news from the Kyle Larson situation. Yes. It is now confirmed that Chevrolet has cut their ties with Kyle Larson completely officially. So now he's no longer a Chevrolet driver at all. He was just suspended, or I guess Chevrolet had suspended his funding for his team. Now they officially cut ties, so now Chevrolet is out of the mix as well. And also from Adam Stern, there is no rush to name a replacement for Kyle Larson in the Ganassi Racing 42 car because of the coronavirus situation. Obviously, we're not racing right now, so there's no need for a replacement, but Ross Chastain's name has obviously come to the top of the thing, but that also will depend on what happens with Ryan Newman, if he's able to return to racing when we go back racing again, because Ross can't drive in two cars. As talented as he is, he cannot be in two Cup cars at the same time.
I was going to say, he can drive multiple vehicles.
Technically three, because he also has the part-time ride in the 15 car, so technically it would be three cars. But
just to add to this Chevrolet situation, they also supported his sprint car.
Yes, so now he doesn't have sprint car support either from Chevrolet.
So, again, I mean, it's just so hard to even talk about this because it just seems so crazy that all this has happened. But, it's just, again, we have to be responsible. And so I don't know. Kyle's going to have an interesting road back here. I think it's going to be a little while before someone attaches themselves to him. I mean, as you pointed out during the break, there are a couple of his sprint car sponsors that have pledged to hang in there with him. Plan B Sales being one, and
Finley Farms
being another. It's, I think it's going to be hard because what happens is, and again, for people listening to this that aren't in business or don't understand, as a business, it affects your brand too. If you're associated with him and he goes out and does something that's bad, then it works bad on you, and you have to. I can't imagine another manufacturer or, another team, at least right now, wanting to accept that baggage.
Right.
Now, if there's any kind of a positivity for Kyle in this, right now the sport's shut down.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So we don't know exactly what NASCAR's sensitivity training is. I mean,
I would hope it's an online course, because otherwise
that's, can he do it online? I mean, right. Again, trying to be serious about this, can he do it online? I mean, we assume it's a class of some sort that, but he's got a little time, I guess is what I'm saying. Time is on his side. But you're not going to, whether he's able to come back this year or not is somebody going to fire their driver in the middle of a shutdown to replace him with Kyle Larson when we come back?
It depends on what they do on iRacing.
What's that?
It depends on what they do on iRacing.
Well, I mean, yeah. But I mean, he can't iRace, so
it's true.
Kyle is going to have some time, I think, to, and I hope that he will do is to use this to reach out to the black community, to, and to reach out to other younger drivers, and to be able to say, hey, this, take what happened to me and learn from it. I did the wrong thing, and, and I don't want you to make the same mistake. If in the end he can use this for good, and maybe it prevents somebody else from doing something equally silly, but it just, we just all we're responsible for what we say and do. And, I hate it for him, but, You just can't defend that. That's not it's not like if he had accidentally dropped an F-bomb, we wouldn't be talking about this. Honestly, it just wouldn't be a big deal. But when you don't say that word by accident, it's got to be in your vocabulary, which means he's probably used it before.
It's in mine. I'm just going to throw it out there.
I mean, well,
Sorry.
it's just you just.
I don't do it all the time.
It just shouldn't be in anybody's.
Right. I know. I'm sorry.
Well,
church was on Sunday.
It's just one of those deals where you just have to. Everybody has to be careful and think about what they say. I mean, do I love comedians like George Carlin and Robin Williams and whoever? Yeah. Do I hate that every other word is an F-bomb sometimes? Yes. Right. Because the material's funny without it. And I've actually done speeches where I've quoted from Carlin's comedy without it, and people laugh just as hard.
Right.
And it's not because I did it; it's just because it's funny stuff. But you don't need that language, and you certainly don't need this.
Right. Well, from a business perspective, I mean, you look at the sponsors that he has. He's got McDonald's. He's got Credit One Bank. Just from the McDonald's standpoint alone, I mean, obviously, McDonald's is a huge corporation. That not only hires a bunch of a lot of minority people, but the diversity and the global diversity within the patrons that eat at that restaurant alone would obviously make it want to be like McDonald's is going to be like, you know what? It's a matter of, do we keep him on board or do we lose business?
Right.
And right now, especially in the midst of the coronavirus and not a lot of places being open right now. I mean, those two places luckily are still open, but the last thing you want to do is lose business because so many companies right now are going under because there's no business coming into their establishment. So when you look at it from that perspective, and I get their corporate, their corporate branded things, but NASCAR fans are loyal to NASCAR brands. And when we get new sponsors coming on and people that are new businesses that sponsor drivers, we obviously want to support them because we appreciate them taking money out of their pocket to put into NASCAR to make these guys better.
Right.
And we always want to, we want to make sure that we always get the bang for the buck. So you put them in a compromising position where they had no choice.
Well, that's exactly right. And just looking at our Facebook chat here, Rob Miller asked the question, do you think you will be out the rest of the year when we go back to real racing? Yes, I do. Yeah. I actually do. I don't know who would give him a ride this year at this point.
Even if he didn't have to be, it's probably the best that he does.
Well, yeah, I think there needs to be some time pass here and let him, build up some good. Sean Mott taking the opposite position. He says big time overkill. Sorry, Sean, it's not. It's not. You if you're going to own a business and your business is a family business or it is a culturally diverse business, it's not overkill at all. You have no choice. You cannot be associated with someone who would utter that kind of language. You can't. Whether we like it or not, it is still a racial slur.
Yep.
And, it just shouldn't be uttered, period. Yep. And you have to distance yourself. Now, maybe someday, you take a second look and you can do sort of a second chance kind of thing, but I think he's going to have to build some new relationships, and he's going to do that through going out and doing things and showing that he understands what he did and understands the gravity of it and is trying to, mend fences, and then I'm sure he'll be fine.
Yeah. I mean, it's a situation where, we talk about all the time. There's always a young kid. There's always another youngster somewhere in the Truck Series, the Xfinity Series, that wants that coveted ride. So especially when you're in the Cup Series, you have to make sure that you always do the right thing because there's always somebody under you that wants your position and wants to be in your spot. And if you do something like Kyle Larson did, ultimately got him fired, now there's a bunch of guys underneath of him that are like, ooh, that ride's open. Right. I want that ride now.
The other
and they're going to do everything right to open eyes to Chip Ganassi to get that right.
Because the other thing I find interesting is that, I wonder if the reaction would be the same if Kyle Busch or Joey Logano would have done that same thing. I think some of these fans that are up for Larson would have had a different point of view because they don't like those guys.
Right.
And that's what bothers me the most is that we're so busy trying to defend Kyle Larson that we're we're basically endorsing what he did.
Right.
And you at this point, it's either A or B. There's no gray area.
Right.
You either think what he said was okay or you don't. And if you don't, then you got to understand this is the consequence.
That's right.
So,
We will have more on this story on Thursday's Motorsports Madness. We thank Chris Rice for joining us. Next week, Adam Stern will be here from the Sports Business Journal, even more business talk, so he'll have a lot to say as well. For Tom Baker, I'm Randy Miller. We'll see you Thursday. Have a great week, everybody. Be safe. We'll see you Thursday on Motorsports Madness.